out of your house, Priya?
It is, yeah.
It's breaking up here.
Yeah, you're right. I just saw the blue. All right, I think we're live.
Okay, I think we're
Okay,
streaming.
let's get started. This is the Clean Energy Alliance Board of Directors meeting. It's June 24th at 2 p.m. and we're virtually in the city of Carlsbad. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Member Drucker,
Here,
Vice Chair Bob Patel,
Here.
Chair Becker.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll wait a second and see if we can get the flag up, and we'll be led by Vice Chair Bob Patel. Always the anticipation.
I know, right? I was going to say, while we're getting the flag up, we can all put our right hand over our heart.
Yeah. Get ready. All right.
All right. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we are on to board comments and announcements. I have one. I'll go first. I wanted to let you all know the good news. The city of Solana Beach will be opting up to CEA's Green Impact 100% renewable energy product for all of our municipal services. So happy about that. Yeah. Also, I understand San Alejo JPA will also be doing that. That's our wastewater, recycled water facility. So no pressure on anybody else, but yes.
And Encina Water Authority also opted up all of their accounts to 100%.
Wow. Oh, that's great news. Very, very good. Okay, on to presentations. I believe there are no presentations and no public comment. Is that correct? All right. Let's move on to approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
so moved.
Second.
Great. Could we call for the vote?
Member Drucker,
Yes,
Vice Chair Bob Patel,
Aye.
Chair Becker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, consent calendar. We only have one item, the treasurer's report. Does anybody want to make a motion to move the consent calendar?
so moved.
Second.
Okay, call for the vote.
Member Drucker,
Yes,
Vice Chair Bob Patel,
Aye.
Chair Becker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. New business, item number 1, Clean Energy Alliance budget adoption. I'll turn that over to our Madam Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Chair Becker, and I will share my screen for our presentation. So the item before the board for consideration is adoption of the Clean Energy Alliance fiscal year 21-22 budget. This budget is the first full year budget for our first full year of operations as a community choice aggregation program. The draft budget upon which this is based was presented to the board at its May 27th meeting. That was our last regular board meeting for input. And we did receive direction from the board. We had proposed 2 items for the board to consider adding to the budget, and the board had given direction that those items should be brought back in the fall after we've gotten through all of our enrollments and through the summer, and we can bring this back for consideration. So the proposed budget is a budget that reflects our current service levels and current consultants with no additions. Assumptions that we based the budget on, the revenues and the expenditures, are a 7% opt-out rate. You might remember that initially we were using a 10% assumption for opt-outs, and we are just right around currently at 6%. And so 7% really is the more accurate figure in terms of what we will anticipate serving over the next year. our power supply costs are based on our actual executed contracts, as well as the April forward price curve of energy. So we have not yet contracted for all of our energy needs going into the next fiscal year. And so for those costs, we use a forward price curve, which gives us an indication of what we can anticipate paying. The consulting services and professional services line item are based on current approved contracts and board direction to extend those contracts into the next fiscal year. We have project sufficient revenue to fund, to set aside 5% of our revenue into our operating reserve. This is consistent with the board's approved reserve policy. And there are sufficient revenue generated to cover our costs based on the assumptions listed above. One, I think, comment about the energy market is that the forward price curves, which is an indication of if we were to contract for energy today, that we will be receiving in, for example, next year or next summer. We've been seeing those costs increasing recently, probably over the last 6 months or so. Those increases are being driven by concerns about summer reliability, and we did get a snapshot of that last week with the unusually warm June that was experienced throughout the West Coast, or the California and the western part of the US. Although fortunately the state did not suffer any shortages in terms of energy. There was always sufficient energy to recover our costs. Recover our demands. Believe it or not, the Texas winter events are impacting our electricity rates because it impacted gas prices. We all are experiencing higher gases price at the pumps, and gas is a product that's needed to generate conventional energy, and so that has an effect on electricity prices. We had an extremely dry winter. Our reservoirs are low, and so electricity generated by hydroelectric facilities is lower than anticipated. And then there have been concerns about reliability of Diablo Canyon Unit 2, which again puts pressure on energy supply that translates into electricity. So all of these things are, I think, putting pressure and coming through in higher than anticipated costs. We do have sufficient revenue being generated to cover our budget. However, as we move towards contracting for the rest of the fiscal year, we will need to evaluate starting for next calendar year how we might need to adjust our rates to recover costs for 2022. By the fall, we anticipate bringing back more information to the board. We'll also have a better idea of where SDG&E's rates are going to go in 2022. Initial indications, and this is very early in the process, is that their generation rates may increase slightly, but they're also looking at a decrease in the exit fees, power charge and difference adjustment. And that makes sense because the PCIA rate works inversely to energy costs. So if SDG&E is liquidating contracts in a market where you're seeing higher prices, they can recover more of those costs and our PCIA rate goes down. So, all of this works to help us stay competitive with SDG&E. And we'll have better feel in the fall of what it's really going to look like for 2022. Snapshot of our budget. Our projected revenue from energy sales is just over $53.5 million. Our estimated expenditures are at just over $51.5 million for a total net margin or net results of operations of just over $2 million. And that $2 million will be added to what we project to be in reserve at the end of this fiscal year. Those funds generally have come from some limited sales of energy, but also from our financing from JP Morgan. So we are projecting to end next fiscal year at just over $3 million, which is approximately 5.75% of revenue. That does conclude my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have at this time.
Thank you. That all looks good. Thank you very much for that report. Seeing no hands up, I'm going to assume we have no questions. If that's the case, I will go ahead and move adoption of the Clean Energy Alliance fiscal year 21-22 budget.
Second,
All right, call for the vote.
I'm sorry, Member Drucker,
yes.
Vice Chair Bob Patel,
Aye.
Chair Becker.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Very good. Item number 3, we have the Clean Energy Alliance Interim Chief Executive Officer report and our regulatory report update. Turn that back to you, Ms. CEO.
Thank you, Chair Becker, and I will move along in my presentation. So these are the 2 reports, are informational reports to receive and file, and I will start with the CEO report, and then I will hand it over to Mr. Tosdahl for his regulatory affairs report. The first few slides, I'm going to talk about our operational results that we've been seeing. This chart reflects calls that have been made to the call center. So we do have a dedicated phone line that goes to our customer service representatives to answer calls from the public. You can see that we had a peak in our calls, and the blue bars are the number of calls, the total number of calls. The red line are the number of those calls that opted to speak to a live agent. So we had a peak in April of both calls that were made to our call center and then those that selected to speak to a live agent. We saw a drop off in May. And then in June, those results are through the June 13th, and they are about where we would anticipate. We're in our last month of the phase 1 enrollment, which was the majority of our customers enrolled in May. And they are receiving their last notice in June. And then we're enrolling our last group, which is just over 9,000. And so the number of calls are trending the way we would anticipate for where we are in our process. And we also look at how long is it taking us to answer those calls, and how long are those calls lasting. So the blue line is how long it's taking for the calls to be answered. And you can see that in March, when we were first staffing up, it took a little bit longer to answer than it is now. We're answering in anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds on average, the calls. The calls are lasting about 7 minutes on average. That's the red line. So pretty steady state there. And that's generally on our data manager, Calpine, indicates that that's not unusual for a CCA that's in its early stages. Another trend that we track very closely are the number of opt-outs. And we're specifically tracking the Carlsbad and Del Mar opt-outs. Those are customers who are leaving SDG&E service for the first time and making that decision of whether to be served by a CCA or stay with the utility. Solana Energy Alliance, those customers base has transitioned over, and we're not seeing any opt-outs as a result of that transition. The blue bars represent the monthly opt-out activity, and the red line is the cumulative. So April, consistent with the calls being made to the call center, is where we saw the majority of the opt-outs being elected. And with a drop off in May, in June, that's jumped up a little bit. Our mailer after enrollment is a letter, and that seemed to catch the eye of customers as opposed to a postcard. We sent an actual letter. And so that may be bringing to the attention, the change in the enrollment. I will say that the number one reason that customers are giving for opting out is they don't like being automatically enrolled. And as you know, the way that the legislation set up community choice energy, it is a automatic enrollment, and customers do have to opt out. But there are segments of the communities, as there are in all CCAs, that just don't like being automatically enrolled in the program. Including Solana Energy Alliance, we are customers. We are currently serving about 93.89% of our eligible customers. So just right around 96% opt-out rate. We do offer a 100% renewable energy product that we were talking about early in the meeting during announcements. It's our Green Impact. And that product is available for customers to voluntarily opt into. It does have a small premium. On average, it's about $2.35 per month to a customer on average residential use for customers to opt up. And we've got 124 customers opt up, which is very, I think, very good at this point in where we're at. And, you know, over the next several months, I think we'll be looking at ways that we can market that product, encourage more opt-ups into our 100% renewable. The default product that all of the cities selected was our 75% carbon-free. And that does also have a slight premium, approximately 35 cents per month. But customers who choose can opt down. And we have had 55 customers opt down to Clean Impact, which is sourced from 50% renewable energy, does not have the incremental increase in carbon-free. In terms of customer outreach, we did make a presentation to the Electric Vehicle Association of San Diego, which is very, very well received. That particular group is, of course, you know, very environmentally conscious and very supportive of Clean Energy Alliance and our goals of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And they were very interested to hear about Clean Energy Alliance and our goals and our program. In terms of where the community can go, you know, while our official noticing will be winding down, we will continue to put out information and advertise Clean Energy Alliance. We try to stay very active in social media. We put out a minimum of 3 posts per week. We typically look at topics that are topics we've been either hearing from the community through our call center, or that maybe we've noticed in other social media posts that we can put out information and point to where we can get. We have our Facebook, we have Twitter, and we have our website. We do encourage, I want to encourage the board to monitor those, and if you have Twitter accounts, to retweet. If you belong to community groups, I would encourage you to encourage those groups to sign up, to subscribe to our channels, to retweet our information, and really help us to spread the word and get the word out. For those watching, if you want to know how to subscribe, the easiest thing to do is go to our website. It's thecleanenergyalliance.org, and there's buttons at the top that will take you directly to the sites where you can subscribe or like, or, you know, in some way get these regular postings. A good example of something that we did recently was information last week during the heat wave on how individuals can conserve and help to ensure that we have reliability and don't run short on electricity supply. And so we communicate those types of information. We also communicate about our programs and just Clean Energy Alliance in general. I'd also encourage you to encourage your cities to kind of help us spread the word about Clean Energy Alliance and social media, and helping to increase our following. You may have heard that the governor has, it will be removing the temporary Brown Act amendments that were put in place as a result of COVID-19. Those will be lifted effective September 30th. And so we'll be returning to normal Brown Act requirements. And if we have specific questions about that, our General Counsel, Greg Stefanisic, can answer your questions. But we do anticipate returning to in-person public participation, beginning with our October meeting. And we're coordinating with our member agency staff, because we do appreciate and rely on our member cities to assist with hosting. And so we want to coordinate with them on broadcasting and recording of meetings. We've transitioned to CEA handling the broadcasting and recording, and we don't want to put that back on the city staff. And so we need to coordinate how we can continue to do that while being in person at our member agencies, city halls or council chambers. As an area of that we've seen activity recently is related to potential expansion of Clean Energy Alliance. As you know, and as we've discussed at prior board meetings, the County of San Diego is evaluating this option, and they are looking at Clean Energy Alliance. Joining Clean Energy Alliance is one of those options. They had sent us a letter requesting specific information with regards to how our policies and goals align with their adopted guiding principles, and also asking for specific information about Clean Energy Alliance and the process to join. We did respond to that letter. The county has provided their historical electric usage data, so we've been able to begin analyzing that data, and I'm happy to say that in the initial review, there's nothing there that is alarming where we would say, oh, this is going to be a concern for us. The load is the revenues based on our current rates would be sufficient to cover costs related to the county, and we'll be continuing to move forward. I did have a call with county staff who's working with that on behalf of the county, and I will be providing some additional information to help them with their due diligence and evaluating Clean Energy Alliance as opposed to San Diego Community Power. And
Their response was due. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just curious if we had set a date where we'll know yes or no.
they're working towards taking the results to their August 17th board meeting. And at that board meeting, they will be presenting the results. The staff is working towards having sufficient data that the county can make their selection and also then take all of the actions to join, whether they're joining CEA or San Diego Community Power. And then assuming that they make the choice to join Clean Energy Alliance, we would then at our August meeting take our action to add them as a new member. Then if they've selected their board member, they would be ready to join our board.
So we should be chatting with our supervisor representatives before that August meeting to advocate that they join CEA.
Yes, I think any conversations you can have would be very good.
Okay. I'll reach out to Tara Lawson-Remer on this.
Yeah, I have a meeting set up with her for a week from now, I think. So that'll be great. Yeah.
And I guess, Priya, you're going to talk to Jim Desmond?
Yeah, I can do that.
Good. I'm just wondering, in terms of the county coverage, does that go out to Borrego, or do they have their own group out at Borrego?
I will have to look to see. I'd have to look at that, and I will get back to you, Board Member Drucker.
Yeah, I'm just, out, anything out past the mountains that could be a little dicey in terms of heat waves.
Right. Yeah, definitely the more inland. I was closely monitoring the weather and within our territory, and we're fortunate to be a coastal community and didn't see, some of the triple digits that they were experiencing in other parts of Southern California. But certainly the more inland we go with our territory, then the more potential impact we have with those types of weather events, heat events.
Just back to the county in terms of advocating, should we set up a meeting with Nathan Fletcher, Christy, or?
Yeah, I will reach out.
Okay. Because, in a lot of ways, he's driving a whole lot of decisions being made there.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. All right, Oceanside.
We also received a letter of interest from the city of Oceanside. They also are in the process of evaluating options with regards to community choice aggregation. And based on the policy that the board adopted, we were able to respond to that letter with that policy direction in that policy. I did have reached back out to the staff person to follow up, and I haven't heard back with regards to next steps, but I will continue to reach out and stay in touch with them and encourage to set up a meeting so that I can talk to them about where they're at in their process and how we can help them with that evaluation. We also have learned that the cities of Escondido, San Marcos, and Vista joined together and had a feasibility study completed that looked at various options for those three cities with regards to community choice energy or community choice aggregation, including looked at the three cities forming their own JPA, looked at the three cities each independently setting up a standalone enterprise activity that each city would independently operate, and also speaks to the option of those three cities joining one of the two Clean Energy Alliance or our other neighboring CCA program. The report, has, I would say, some conclusions that we're not necessarily seeing in our operations today. And looking at what might be appropriate to reach out and speak to them. Something that I'm considering, and I guess I would seek board input, is sending a letter, since they do have in their report the possibility of joining CEA, and we have our policy of reaching out and just providing them with our new member policy and seeing what kind of response we get.
Yeah, I would like to chime in here. I do feel that some of the conclusions in that report were they were hard to understand, and so I think it would be appropriate to just offer yourself up as if they have any questions, but also for sure to tell them that we have a policy for our new members, and we'd love to share it with you. And I think Vista has already been presented, their city council has already been presented with this as well, but San Marcos, their city council hasn't met yet. So I think it would be really a great idea if you were available to speak at that meeting and just to be available for any questions about our policies or talk about, all your wealth of knowledge. If that's something that you would be available for, that would be great. But I think a letter at a very minimum to Escondido would be appropriate.
Yeah, I would agree that we should get a letter out to Escondido, San Marcos, and Vista.
Mhm.
It can't hurt.
I really can't imagine how a whole third CCE would be desirable. So I would hope that they would be considering one of the two that are already started, but all right, well, those are at least positive happenings. So good work.
And then a final item, just informational item for the board, is that over the past week or so, our scheduling coordinator, who's the Energy Authority, who also assists us in managing our congestion revenue rights processes, which is an opportunity for CEA to earn revenue that helps to offset congestion costs. As part of our existing agreement with the Energy Authority, TEA, they had already agreed to provide a credit solution for activity with the California Independent System Operator. As a market participant, there are requirements for collateral, and TEA, as part of their agreement with us, had offered to provide that. in working with the California ISO to meet that requirement, it was learned that that collateral would actually need to be needed to be posted in Clean Energy Alliance's name. And so in order to ensure that we have agreement between the two entities that posting, while it's in Clean Energy Alliance's name, it was provided by the Energy Authority, and it provided terms for it being returned to them at the appropriate point in time. An amendment was executed. That amendment does not change the cost of services. And I bring this to your attention because the board had previously approved the Energy Authority agreement. In consultation with our general counsel, it was determined that we could execute the agreement because it didn't change the overall terms or the costs, but rather just established that the posting is TEA's funds that would be subject to return at an appropriate time.
Okay, very good.
That completes my portion, and if there's no questions, I'd be happy to invite Mr. Tosdahl to make his presentation, and I can stop sharing.
Barbara, you
Yes.
talked about 9,000 people joining CEA. What is that cohort made up of?
The group that started enrolling in June are primarily our net energy metering customers, and also commercial customers who have what SDG&E determined were complex billing. So it could be a larger customer who has a number of accounts that they bill under one bill. They had asked that we consider enrolling them in June rather than May to give one more month after their new billing system was in place, a month's cushion to ensure that everything went smoothly, and everything has been going smoothly.
Thank you.
You don't have any update on SDCP, do you? Is there anything interesting going on there that we put you on the spot? Sorry about that. Just,
That's okay. They're in I guess, a very similar place that we are in terms of responding to questions from our neighboring cities and county who are evaluating options with regards to CCE. They also, at today's board meeting, they are adopting a new member policy similar to what our board action had taken at the last meeting. They're adopting their budget as well. So our agendas look very familiar, look very between the two.
okay, good. It's good to monitor. Yes, Vice Chair Bhat Patel.
Sure, just some comments. I know that during our briefing, I had mentioned to Ms. Boswell about how all of our cities could do potentially a job of advocating or promoting CEA. I think it would be really important, especially on our social media channels. I think I had mentioned, maybe it was a couple months ago at this point, that we need to increase our following, and I have seen the number go up, which is great. But I do think that each of our cities could, obviously utilize our platform, since we do have quite a few folks that follow each of our cities' different social media accounts. So I think just having that would really help maybe answer some questions around, some of the questions that we may receive in our emails. I know I get quite a few regarding CEA, and definitely I do point them to either, stuff on our website or of course to our staff. But I do think that if there's something that's easily available for folks, it'll answer those questions, hopefully. And I think social media tends to be a place people go to look for, some information or a website. So I think just in general, that was something that I had suggested was, just being able to use that. And I know we're looking into it in our city. I know Mr. Haber was going to check in with our city manager to see if we can put that on all of our different social media platforms, maybe once every month or so. But I'm looking forward to being able to, utilize that platform to at least get more information out there, because I do get stopped by neighbors and others asking certain questions. And I think it would be really helpful for just a consolidated thing that kind of goes out and folks have the opportunity to check out, which I know we have, like the FAQs and everything. So it would just be a great way to kind of advertise that. So I just wanted to put a plug in there for that.
Yeah, you're the best at social media. I'll give you that. I wonder if on the Solana Beach website, which we're in the process of getting an entirely new one. So I wonder if we have a link to CEA right on the front there. I'll check on that, but that would be a good idea. So thank you for that. Okay, I think, are we ready for our regulatory affairs report?
All right, thank you, Ms. Becker. Good afternoon, board members. Have some information to report to you about some decisions that were actually made today at the Public Utilities Commission. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, if that's all right, Ms. Boswell.
I think you should. Yep.
Great. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Great. Let me try and just make it a little bit larger if I can. Is that helpful? Can you all see that
smaller.
still?
Bit
That-
smaller.
No. We'll go with small. You can also see that, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about a few proceedings today, the IRP proceeding or Integrated Resource Plan proceeding, a little bit of news about RPS citations and citation program, and then some tidbits about a COVID-19 related customer bill debt proceeding and then the net energy metering proceeding. So very full agenda at the Public Utilities Commission's meeting today. This slide, unfortunately, is when at the time that I submitted it, it was perfectly current, but there were some last minute changes to the Commission's decision. So the PD did order a substantial amount of additional procurement statewide for 2023 to 2026, and this was an order that was the result of studies about the midterm reliability needs. Midterm is 5 years out from the Commission's standpoint, and the order affects really all load serving entities in California. So IOUs, CCAs, and direct access providers. There were some very specific resource orders contained in this order. And in addition to that, there was a very contentious part of the proposed decision was directed to the utilities to procure additional fossil fuel resources. So since I mentioned there was a revision to this decision. The fossil fuel order is out. Under the original proposed decision, CEA was allocated 9 megawatts total over this time frame to procure, in addition to what it's currently required to procure. And the revised decision increased that to 38 megawatts. So we will be consulting with Ms. Boswell and our procurement team about meeting that requirement. There was also a provision added to this decision that would permit, parties to make adjustments and to their allocations if another load serving entity or utility or CCA program was willing to take them on. So that is something that I will consult with Ms. Boswell about, and our procurement team will decide whether we want to pursue that. In addition, I did want to make the board aware that the Commission is planning to adopt a resolution establishing penalties for failure to submit RPS planning documents. The penalties are $500 plus $500 per day for the first 10 days that a submission is late, and then $1,000 per day each day after. I think there's not really a concern about filing these plans per se. We've always filed them on time and so forth, but there was some additional language that provided that the citation could be issued for failure to respond to data requests from the Commission. And we run into issues sometimes with the data requests because the Commission occasionally overreaches and asks for information that they are not entitled to, or that is really not material to the issue at hand. So did want to make the board aware of that, there are now penalties for the failing to submit the planning documents and respond to data requests. There's another set of citations in place for failing to comply with RPS, the RPS energy requirements. So this is a little bit different. Just moving along, there's also a proposed decision that requires the investor-owned utilities to adopt a 24-month amortization schedule for customers in arrears to pay off their balance at the time. The customers are eligible just in virtue of there being a payment in arrears, not any specific COVID-19 status or showing. There's customers who are participating cannot be disconnected. So this is layered on top of the arrearage management plan that the commission had previously adopted, and CCA programs are participating in these programs, and so we are looking at any effects of this 24-month amortization schedule on that plan and any impacts to CEA. So finally, I just wanted to circle back on net energy metering. Very contentious proceeding, as you all know. AB 1139, which is also a very controversial solar bill, failed to pass the assembly, and we are not expecting it to come back anytime soon. Certainly not during this legislative session. It's on suspense, is the term. It's in what's called the suspense file. There really have not been any major developments in the NEM proceeding per se. There was a decision that was held today at the Public Utilities Commission. The remaining schedule, really starting in July, there'll be evidentiary hearings followed by a briefing, and then a proposed decision later in the year, which may slip into next year, as we often see when there are contentious proceedings. So that's all that I have for my report today, and happy to answer any questions.
Was there any movement on the SB 619? Where was
SB 612?
612?
The bill. There was. It's headed to committee next. If you just give me a moment, I will give you the date. Next Wednesday, I believe. Yes. Next Wednesday, the 30th, there'll be a hearing on SB 612. And forgive me, but I don't have the committee in front of me. I will get back to Ms. Boswell about that, and we can distribute that information for those who
What
aren't
is
aware.
that bill about?
Oh, sorry. It is about providing a process by which CCA programs can access power in the utility portfolio. And so it provides an allocation process by which CCA programs in a given utility territory can access a slice of that power. I mean, we have to pay for it, obviously, but you can access a slice of that power and alleviate the pressures on going out and finding, brand new sources of power for our customers.
But isn't it also that, we're paying for that through our PCIA charge, and we should be
Right.
getting that energy that we're paying for anyway?
Correct. That's the rationale for it. Exactly. Ms. Becker.
Okay, that was very, very good, very thorough. Does anyone have any other questions on that? All right. Well, thank you for both of those reports. All good news. Okay, we're on to item number 4, unless we just want to skip this one and just go on. We are at the time that I am at the end of my tenure, I believe. So today we need to elect a new chair and vice chair. Do we have any presentation on this?
One moment. I do not have a presentation, but I can introduce the item. As mentioned, it is our JPA agreement does specify that our board and our chair and vice chair are to be appointed or elected by the board to serve for each fiscal year. So our fiscal year begins in July, And so it would be appropriate at this time for the board to consider those selections and appointment to be effective in July.
So I would move that we continue on with Christy and Priya, Chair and Vice Chair. I would also, though, suggest that we look at changing the JPA agreement. It really should be based upon a calendar year or based upon the election, or lots of times cities will change their representatives in December, January timeframe. And I think we should chat about changing this so that it reflects that rather than our fiscal year. Because again, we had that problem that, this last January where, we had to do a new chair and vice chair because of the changes of personnel, elected officials. So, more than happy to have you all continue on. And, but I would like to have us discuss how we can change the terms of these positions.
Is that something we need to bring back on the next agenda?
It would be. So there's a two-step process. So if we brought back at the next agenda and then if the board gives direction, we bring it back at the following meeting for adoption.
And would we have to go back to each of the cities to get them to agree to
No, we don't. The board has the authority to amend
Oh.
the JPA agreement itself.
Great. Well, I would strongly suggest we bring it back and make that amendment.
Okay, and do we need a motion for that?
Yes, a motion would be fine to give that direction.
Okay,
Okay, well, first let's do the motion for the chair and vice chair. So I moved, Christy and Priya continue on.
very good. I'll second that. All right, call for the vote.
Member Drucker,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bob Patel,
Aye.
Chair Becker.
Yes,
Motion carries.
And then I would create a motion that would suggest that we bring back a discussion and or motion on changing the terms of the vice chair and chair to reflect the election cycles.
Second, and would you want us to reference the section number or is this clear enough?
That'll be clear enough. And I'll
Okay, great.
draft up the amendment for the next meeting and then you'll have that to take a look at your July meeting.
Perfect.
all right, thank you. I'm sorry about that. I missed that last part. We are all good on that one? All right,
I think we just have to call the vote now. Yeah.
Right, we just need to vote.
all right,
Member Drucker,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bob Patel,
Yes.
Chair Becker.
yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, this I think was our record meeting, shortest meeting ever, unless anybody else has a board member request for a future agenda item. Wow, okay, we are adjourned and we're going to be next meeting July 29th at 2 p.m.
July 20, so it's always the last Thursday.
Right.
It's always the last Thursday because sometimes there's 4 and
Okay.
sometimes there's 5. So is that right? Okay.
Right.
All right.
Okay, excellent. Have a good one.
Thank
Thanks,
you.